I'm Mark, and welcome to my car. I own a 2018 Honda Accord. It's got this great little compartment where I store pens and paper and my USB drives that I use to rotate through podcasts and so on. But it's got a little bit of a problem. It's kind of a mess, and I'd like to fix that. It doesn't look like it, but things tend to just roll to the back, especially the USB drives. And so I want to be able to build something that can fit inside this compartment, keeps everything separate and up front so I can grab it easier. Now, it's not a straightforward shape, so I need to model it. That's the question for today, is how do I model this? So I'm going to go low tech. I got a bunch of cardboard and some painter's tape, and I methodically just started cutting pieces that fit inside the container. And eventually, I came up with this guy. This will just fit inside the compartment. It'll keep the pens organized in the left compartment. My USB drive that's not in use will fit in the right. The paper will fit in the center. So the next step then will be to model this in FreeCAD, one piece at a time. I start with a cube, and I stretch it to become the back wall of what I'm calling the frame. I add another to make the left wall of the frame, stretching it the same basic way, and then spending a little bit of time trying to line it up. Once I have that lined up, I need to make a triangular cut out of the bottom of the wall. The cut needs to have fairly precise dimensions. So I sketch a triangle, the one that I want with all the right dimensions. Once I had that sketch, I used the pad tool to turn it into a solid block. And then I used the alignment tool to line it up with the wall in the corner. I matched 3 points on each surface, and then the tool snaps them into place for me. Once they were aligned, I used the cut tool and the part workbench to subtract the wedge from the wall, and then I duplicate the wall to make the right side of the frame. I make the post next with another cube, and this post will hold the USB storage container. I stretch it out, take another triangular cut, just very similar to before. Then I use the cut tool to subtract it, and then line it up with the right side of the wall, to merge everything together using the compound tool on the part workbench. So now it's all one piece. For the USB container itself, I create a rectangular cube. I duplicate it, making the second one a little bit smaller, and then I subtract the first from the second to make that C shape. I'll line it up using the angle. I adjust the angle to make sure everything lines up, and then I attach it to the post. Next, I create little tabs that will be used to attach the container to the rest of the post. I do a couple of these, one top and one bottom, and then use the compound tool again to attach everything or convert everything into one piece. Now I slide that in and duplicate the tabs and line those up with the post, and then I subtract the tabs from the post, making those rectangular holes. And those holes, because they're all lined up, the part will just slide right in. Now I build the pen storage in basically the same way. Start with a cube, duplicate it, subtract one from the other to make a C shape. Then I line it up, line up the tabs where I want them, convert it all to one piece using the compound tool, line it up with the wall, duplicate the tabs, cut the tabs from the rest of the wall, and then everything is lined up, so that will slide right in nicely. Now this little corner, I have to cut off a little bit, I have to trim off a little bit, and I tried a couple of different things. I first start with a fillet, and then I tried the chamfer tool, which also didn't work well. So then I went back to the fillet, but I used a more extreme angle, and that seemed to do the trick. Once the parts were printed, I needed to clean them up, which is officially my least favorite stage of a build. But the payoff is worth it. Here was my first prototype, and it did not fit. It was just a little too wide on this dimension to fit into the car. So before I went through the trouble of reprinting this with a new dimension, I decided to run a quick test. So I cut this in half, and I made the two pieces overlap, and then duct taped it together. And this one fits perfectly. This is actually 3 millimeters narrower than the original one. So now I could reprint that whole thing with that dimension. But once it was in there, I could test the other pieces out. The pen storage that's going to go on the right, this works decently. I'm okay with it for now. The USB drive storage, though, had two problems that I had to solve. The first one, when this was in place, you'll notice that there's no back. What I didn't really quite appreciate with this test was that the car has a compartment that comes down about 2/3 of the way, but not entirely. There's a gap at the bottom. At least one of my USB drives, I would put it in and the thing slid right out the back. I needed to print a version of it that had a back to it. The other thing that I discovered is that if this was in place, I have two USB drives that I toggle between. And one of them is significantly longer than the other. And when it was in the storage compartment, the door for the console did not close. It was sticking out too far. I decided I'm just going to find a different USB drive to work with. So, on to prototype 3. So I'm back in my car. I have prototype 3. This one is narrower, and the USB compartment has a back to it. So now I'm going to try it and see how well it fits. And if it fits, load it up. Well, there you have it. Everything's nice and snug. Everything's organized. I'm not going to have any more problems with things sliding to the back. So overall, I think this is a winner. This project was born out of a point of friction in my environment, and I spent a long time just dealing with it. But once I really focused on it, I began to imagine ways that I might solve it. What's a point of friction in your environment? Focusing on it is the first step to addressing it. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and yeah, the door shuts.